On the day I led the army back to the capital, news spread through the imperial city that the empress's closest friend had died with her unborn child. At the funeral, the emperor suddenly asked me, "Do you know who Oreo is?" My pupils constricted sharply. 10 years ago, my best friend and I had traveled through time from the modern world to this ancient era. In 10 years, she had risen from crown princess to empress. I had gone from the only daughter of Duke Wuding to a female general galloping across the battlefield. A year ago, when I set off for war, we had made a pact. If either of us met an untimely end, the word Oreo would be our secret signal. I stared at the grief-stricken face before me, my entire body turning ice cold. How did he know that name? Could Lingxi's death be related to the emperor? The thought had barely crossed my mind before I suppressed it. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I had witnessed his deep love for Lingxi with my own eyes. Lingxi loved loquats from Jiangnan, so he had them rushed from Suzhou by fast horse, year-round without interruption. Lingxi enjoyed opera, so he kept the most famous opera troupe in the capital in the palace, just to perform for her. Lingxi feared the cold in winter, so he personally drew blueprints to design a warm pavilion for her, revising the drawings 7 or 8 times. Once, when Lingxi fell ill, he did not attend court for 3 days, staying by her bedside to feed her medicine. Though he maintained a harem of 3,000 concubines as custom dictated, he never favored any other woman. When ministers voiced complaints, he only said, "She alone is enough." What's more, I gazed at Zhao Chenyan's face. It was etched with sorrow, the pain of losing his beloved and their unborn child. How could he have killed her, let alone caused the death of both mother and child? Childbirth was inherently dangerous for women. Perhaps I was overthinking. Seeing me frown and fall silent, Zhao Chenyan's gaze shifted from me to the ice coffin. "I've asked many people, but no one knows who Oreo is. You were her closest friend, I thought you might know." He reached out a hand, resting it on her face, his voice soft as if speaking to himself. "How could you bear to leave me alone in this world?" I steeled my emotions and asked, "I have never heard of this name, Your Majesty. Why do you seek this person?" Zhao Chenyan choked back a sob. When Lingxi hemorrhaged during labor, she told me to find Oreo, saying this person could save her. I asked her who Oreo was and where to find them, but she breathed her last right after speaking those words. I knelt on the ground, my heart lurching violently. I could no longer deceive myself. He was lying. My best friend would never have told him to find Oreo to save her. For Oreo was just a type of modern cookie. On the day I left for war a year ago, she stood on the city tower watching me depart. "Be careful in everything, come back alive." I had also warned her that the palace was full of scheming people, telling her to stay vigilant at all times. Suddenly, she said, "Oreo." "What?" She lowered her voice. "If either of us comes to harm, hearing this name means the other was murdered, and anyone who says this name cannot be trusted." I laughed. "Who uses a cookie's name as a secret signal? I think you're just craving sweets." She glared at me. "No one here knows it's a cookie. They'll think it's a person's name. That's what makes it a real secret signal." Sure enough, a year later, I returned alive. She was dead. If she had truly spoken that name before dying, there was only one possibility. Her death was no accident. Even the man standing before me, the one grieving so deeply for her, I could not trust him. I lowered my eyes to hide my expression. "Please take care of yourself, Your Majesty. The Empress would not wish to see you so distraught in the afterlife." Zhao Chenyan waved his hand. "You've only just returned. Stay a while longer to keep her company." With that, he staggered outside. As he reached the door, I suddenly called out, "Your Majesty." Who was attending to the Empress on the day of her labor? He froze for a moment. "A few imperial physicians and her personal maids." "Why do you ask?" "Nothing. I merely wanted to know who was with her at the end." Zhao Chenyan stared at me for a long while before speaking. "Those people couldn't even save my Lingxi. They are all useless and have been executed as punishment." My face remained impassive, but cold sweat ran down my back. Within a single day, Everyone who had attended the empress in the delivery room was dead, not a single one spared. This was no punishment. It was execution to silence witnesses. I dug my nails deep into my palm, suppressing the urge to confront him over his actions. After the morning hall was empty except for me, I slowly stood and walked to the ice coffin. Lingxi lay there peacefully, as if asleep. But I knew she would never wake again. If Zhao Chenyan had harmed Lingxi, I could not imagine the despair she must have felt in her final moments, facing the man she had loved for 10 years. I reached out to hold her hand, but my heart skipped a beat. This hand was wrong. On Lingxi's right thumb, there was a hidden bone spur. It had been caused 3 years ago when she fell from a horse. At that time, Zhao Chenyan was competing with other princes for the throne. Not wanting to distract him, she had hidden the injury and refused to see a physician, only seeking treatment from a wandering healer. The bone healed but left a small bump, unnoticeable unless touched closely. Yet this thumb was smooth and unmarked. I flipped her wrist and examined her palm. Lingxi's hands were soft and delicate, but this palm bore calluses, and there was a hard mark on the tiger's mouth from holding a sword. I slowly lifted my gaze to her face. The resemblance was striking. 1 floor, 2 floors, 3 floors. Yet the more I looked, the more something felt wrong. I leaned closer and spotted traces of a human skin mask at her hairline. I stepped back, my mind buzzing. This was not Lingxi. Where was the real Lingxi? If the woman in the ice coffin was an impostor, could Lingxi still be alive? My heart raced wildly. At that moment, rustling sounds came from the doorway. I spun around sharply. Who's there? A hunched figure cowered by the door, trembling with fear. It was the old woman who emptied chamber pots in the Phoenix Palace. Forgive me, General. I didn't mean to peek. Someone told me to give this to you. She fumbled a handkerchief from her chest, holding it out with both hands. It was an ordinary white cotton handkerchief embroidered with an orchid, with neat stitches typical of palace embroidery. Who told you to give this to me? The Empress, Your Excellency. The old woman's voice dropped to a whisper. A few days ago, the Empress called me over and said if anything happened to her, I should give this handkerchief to you, as a keepsake. I thought she was just anxious about her first childbirth, never imagining her words would come true. If Lingxi had only feared complications during labor, she would never have left me a mere handkerchief as a keepsake. Nor would she have entrusted it to such an insignificant servant. What else did she say? Nothing, Your Excellency. She only said you would understand when you saw the handkerchief. After the old woman left, I stared down at the handkerchief in my hand. A plain orchid. Every imperial concubine in the palace had handkerchiefs embroidered with flowers. But I knew Lingxi never embroidered orchids on her handkerchiefs. She thought orchids were too plain, saying they were for elderly women. So why had she specially embroidered an orchid for me? I turned the handkerchief over and over. By candlelight, I noticed something odd about the orchid's stitches. The orchid had 5 leaves, but one curved unnaturally. It did not follow the natural growth pattern. It was deliberately bent into the shape of an arrow, pointing straight down the handkerchief. Lingxi and I had grown up together. When we played hide and seek, she always left clues so I could find her. The arrow on the handkerchief was identical to the clumsy patterns she used to draw as a child. Clutching the handkerchief, my mind raced. Lingxi's Phoenix Palace was in the east. Directly south of it lay countless palaces. After eliminating all possibilities one by one, I tightened my grip on the handkerchief and stared toward the imperial study, the closest building south of the Phoenix Palace. It was Zhao Chenyan's daily workplace. Originally located elsewhere, he had moved it closer to Lingxi. Could Lingxi be hidden there? At midnight, I changed into night clothes and slipped into the imperial study. I searched the entire room, but found no secret chambers or hidden compartments, nor any other clues left by Lingxi. I was about to leave when I accidentally knocked into a scroll leaning against the desk. I reached to catch it, revealing Lingxi's portrait underneath. Lingxi had once told me Zhao Chenyan was a skilled painter, having painted many portraits of her that she adored. Yet Zhao Chenyan never let her show them to anyone, saying such a beautiful Lingxi was for his eyes only. I unrolled the scroll to examine it closely, and 2 letters fell out. For Shen Hunchuang's eyes only. It was Lingxi's handwriting. Why were letters she wrote to me here? By moonlight, I unfolded the letter. The content was similar to her usual correspondence. She wrote that aside from the baby kicking in her belly, life in the palace was good, and I need not worry. But the final line made my hands tremble. If you do not find Oreo, do not come back to see me. The 2 letters had nearly identical content, both dated a month prior, just a few days apart. In the second letter, her mention of Oreo was far more urgent. It was a warning. She was telling me not to return, that danger awaited. Without fail, Lingxi wrote me a letter every month while I was away at war. I had not received any letters from her this past month, assuming she was too tired from her pregnancy or had gone into early labor. I had thought nothing of it, eager to return home as soon as I captured the enemy stronghold. Yet these letters were here instead, meaning Zhao Chenyan had intercepted both of Lingxi's letters to me that month. That was why Zhao Chenyan thought Oreo was a person. He had read Lingxi's letters. She had begged me not to return, knowing I would face danger. I had returned safely, but she was gone. Lingxi. What had happened while I was away? Over the next few days, I watched Zhao Chenyan grieve inconsolably before Lingxi's funeral shrine. A young eunuch whispered that the emperor had eaten and drunk nothing these past few days, refusing all comfort. I could only sneer inwardly. Lingxi's disappearance was undoubtedly his doing, but why had he replaced her with an impostor? I longed to confront him. But until I found Lingxi and uncovered the truth, I had no choice but to endure. 3 days later, the empress was laid to rest. The imperial mausoleum was 30 li from the capital, and the funeral procession stretched endlessly. Zhao Chenyan personally carried the coffin, followed by court officials, their cries echoing through the sky. I did not attend the funeral. No matter how convincing his act, the woman was not my Lingxi. Pretending to have fainted from grief, I slipped back into the palace. In the cold palace, a mad concubine waved a wooden hairpin wildly. This hairpin is the empress's token. Kneel before me at once. I paused, staring at the purple wooden hairpin in her hand. My pupils constricted instantly. It was a gift I had carved for Lingxi with my own hands, one she had never removed even after becoming empress. Where did you get this hairpin? The mad concubine jumped in fright, crouching on the ground with her head in her hands. Don't kill me. I didn't steal it. I found it. I softened my tone. Where did you find it? She shook her head wildly, refusing to speak further. I pulled a pastry from my sleeve and spoke gently. Tell me where you found the hairpin, and I'll give this to you. She stared at the pastry, swallowing hard. Really? Yes. She hesitated for a long moment before slowly extending a finger toward the back of the cold palace. There's a well. It stinks, lots of dead mice. With that, she snatched the pastry and ran away. Following her direction, I saw an old dry well covered by a large stone, but I stood frozen nearby, afraid to approach. Not only were Lingxi's clues around the well, but the air reeked of a thick stench. Having spent years on the battlefield, I knew this smell all too well. It was not dead mice. It was the stench of a dead body. I was afraid that the body might be Lingxi's. I stood there, my mind flooded with memories of Lingxi over the years. I closed my eyes. On the battlefield, I had thought I was used to death. But in this moment, I finally understood. I was only used to the deaths of strangers. When the moon reached its zenith, I opened my eyes and slowly stepped forward. My hands were scraped raw, my nails broken, blood dripping down my fingers. Finally, the stone shifted, revealing the well. The stench grew unbearable. I lit a torch and shone it down the well. The well was deep, but I could see a figure curled in the dry mud at the bottom. I do not know how I managed to pull her up. Her body was severely decomposed, her face gone, yet I recognized her. On her wrist was the red string bracelet I had given her, faded with time. Tucked at her waist was the sachet, a peace charm I had prayed for her at a temple before going to war. And beneath her luxurious robes, her belly was swollen. I knelt on the ground, holding her motionless. My Lingxi had always loved beauty. She spent half an hour brushing her hair every morning, scented her clothes, and used the finest rouge. Now, she lay in my arms, faceless, her tattered clothes crawling with maggots. What suffering had she endured? I wondered if she had been in pain when she died. If she had called out my name, I dared not think. Yet I could not help but wonder. Her belly held the life she had looked forward to for so long. She had written to me, telling me how the baby kicked and disturbed her sleep. I could almost hear the joy in her words. She had said when the baby was born, I would be the godmother. That when the child grew older, I would teach them to ride and shoot. That when we were old, we would sit in the courtyard watching the child run around. Yet now, I held her and the unborn child who would never see the world, hatred swelling in my heart. What had she done to deserve such cruelty from Zhao Chenyan, not even sparing her unborn child? At dawn, I arranged Lingxi's tattered clothes and prepared to carry her away. I noticed her hand was tightly clenched around a blood-stained golden hairpin. I gently pried open her fingers. The hairpin was broken in two, revealing a small piece of paper hidden inside. The first two words were, Mumu, and tears flooded my eyes. Mumu was my childhood nickname in the modern world. No one had called me that since we traveled through time, no one but Lingxi. Through blurred eyes I read on. Mumu, if you are reading this, I have been murdered. I discovered a secret that could not be spoken of. As I finished reading, I finally learned the truth. Lingxi wrote that after Zhao Chenyan ascended the throne, he changed. The crown prince I had known once had eyes only for her, for the empire, for honor. But seated on the dragon throne, he saw only suspicion and lust for power. I fought on the front lines, winning battle after battle, hailed across the capital as the empire's protecting female general. Yet these praises were thorns in Zhao Chenyan's side. Since my departure for war, rumors had spread through the streets. They said his throne owed everything to Duke Wuding's household, to me, Shen Hanshuang. That he was emperor only by my grace. When these rumors reached the palace, Lingxi defended me fiercely, swearing I was loyal and harbored no ill will. Zhao Chenyan pretended to lament the hardships of being emperor, never mentioning his suspicion of me. Yet every word sank deep into his heart. Last month, she had accidentally overheard Zhao Chenyan speaking with his trusted eunuch, Li Ganggong, outside the imperial study, and learned he had long planned to eliminate me. He said I held great military power, my achievements overshadowing his own. Soldiers respected me more than him. If I rebelled, the empire would no longer belong to the Zhao family. He planned to wait for my return from war, frame me for colluding with the enemy to strip me of my military power, then execute the entire Duke Wuding household to eliminate all threats. Lingxi was shattered. She rushed in to argue with him. She is my dearest friend, the hero who fought for your empire. She has never betrayed you. How could you do this? She knelt before him, begging him to spare me and my family, pleading for the sake of their 10 years together and my countless battles. But Zhao Chenyan only stared at her coldly. In the imperial family, there is no room for affection, only for the empire. He called Lingxi foolish, blinded by friendship. Lingxi knelt outside the imperial study all night, crying until her voice was hoarse. Yet Zhao Chenyan ignored her for the first time. She had no choice but to use her monthly letters to secretly warn me not to return. But she waited and waited, receiving no reply from me. She realized Zhao Chenyan no longer trusted even her. Her letters had been intercepted. Lingxi wrote that in this ancient world, I was her only support. She could not stand by and watch me die. So she gambled everything. On Zhao Chenyan's love for her, on his affection for their unborn child, that he would spare me. 2 years ago, she had learned a secret from Zhao Chenyan's sleep talk. The late emperor's will had not named the crown prince as heir. Zhao Chenyan had altered the imperial edict to seize the throne. Without that forgery, he would never have become emperor. She had never told even me this secret, but she planned to use it to save me. The final line of Lingxi's note read, Mumu, if you are reading this, I have lost the gamble. I overestimated his love for me, underestimated how power corrupts a man, A decade of love is no match for his suspicion. The handwriting was shaky, smudged with tears by the end. I clutched the thin piece of paper, my knuckles white. I stared at Lingxi's broken body in my arms, her form stiff from decomposition, her robes in tatters. It was clear she had died at least a week earlier. That was why Zhao Chenyan had found a look-alike, even going so far as to take Lingxi's face to make a mask. He feared discovery, or wanted to lure me into a trap. Wind swirled around me, filling my heart with a storm of rage. 10 years. 10 whole years. A perfect love between emperor and empress, a man who loved Lingxi more than life itself. Zhao Chenyan had enjoyed 10 years of her love, yet killed her in the cruelest way possible. I laughed, blood welling in my throat. I knelt on the ground, holding Lingxi's body, calling her name over and over. Lingxi, you foolish girl. How could you sacrifice yourself for a chance at my survival? Only the wind in the cold palace answered, carrying the unrelenting stench of death. Hatred coiled around my heart, choking me. I stared toward the eastern palace. Zhao Chenyan. When you rebelled against the late emperor, who led 500 soldiers to break through the enemy lines and save you. When you ascended the throne, who blocked 3 waves of assassins for you. When you sat on the dragon throne, who fought on the front lines to protect your empire. I did. I, Shen Hanshuang. Yet now you fear my achievements, plan to execute my entire family, and killed my Lingxi first. I, Shen Hanshuang, can win half the empire for Zhao Chenyan with my own hands, striking fear into the enemy. I can also overthrow his reign and destroy his empire with my own hands. I carefully carried Lingxi's body to an annex of the cold palace, wrapped her in clean cloth, and used my medicine to slow the decomposition. I knew it was not yet time for her to rest in peace. She would watch me tear everything Zhao Chenyan held dear to shreds. Back at Duke Wuding's residence, I dismissed all servants and sat alone in the study through the night. I sorted through every clue. Zhao Chenyan's greatest weakness was never his harem, but his illegitimate claim to the throne. Altering the late emperor's will was his fatal flaw. Not all court officials were loyal to Zhao Chenyan. The late emperor had 7 sons. The 9th prince, Zhao Chenyu, was the emperor's favorite and the original heir to the throne. After ascending, Zhao Chenyan had relentlessly suppressed the 9th prince, banishing him to a fief on the outskirts of the capital and stripping him of his military power. Lingxi was the beloved daughter of Grand Tutor Gu. If he learned of her murder, he would never forgive Zhao Chenyan. That night, I slipped back into the palace again. Beneath Lingxi's bed, hidden in a secret compartment, I found the late emperor's original will. Written in vermilion ink, on yellow silk, the characters were clear. Bequeath the throne to the 7th son, Chenyu. The name had been erased with special ink and rewritten as Chenyan. The ink blended with the vermilion, unnoticeable at first glance. But over time, the ink faded, revealing the tampering clearly. Carefully hiding the will, I prepared to leave when I heard footsteps outside. I hid behind a bookshelf as Zhao Chenyan entered. He held Lingxi's portrait, murmuring to himself. Lingxi, why did you betray me? Why did you side with Shen Hanshuang? Why did you learn my secret? There was even a hint of grievance in his voice, as if he were the wronged one. I sneered inwardly. This man always believed he was right, blaming everyone else for his mistakes. He never realized his suspicion and lust for power had killed his wife and unborn child. I slipped silently out of the imperial study and returned to the Duke's residence. Less than half a month later, Zhao Chenyan finally made his move. He held a banquet to celebrate my victory, but I knew it was a trap. When I entered the great hall clad in silver armor, he shouted, Shenhan Xiangxiang Wang, how dare you enter the hall armed? Do you seek rebellion? I sneered. I, Shen Hanshuang, have served the empire faithfully. Where is the treason? Zhao Chenyan sat on the dragon throne, his voice sharp. Entering the hall armed is proof enough. Seize her. Yet none of the guards beside him dared move. I pointed my spear at his forehead. You are wrong. I come today not to rebel, but to purge corrupt officials, execute traitors, and expose your heinous crimes, Zhao Chenyan." At my words, soldiers behind me shouted in unison, their voices shaking the sky. The ninth prince stepped forward, standing beside me, his gaze cold as ice on Zhao Chenyan. Grand Tutor Gu pulled the late emperor's will from his sleeve and shouted, "What crime has General Shen committed? What crime has my daughter committed? Today, we shall reveal to the world how you forged the imperial will, murdered your wife and unborn child, a false emperor." Grand Tutor Gu unfurled the will for all officials to see. Staring at the clear tampering on the document, the ministers gasped in shock. The will was altered. The late emperor intended to pass the throne to the ninth prince. Zhao Chenyan dared forge the imperial will. How audacious. Zhao Chenyan paled as he stared at the will. "Fake. This is all fake. You forged it. Plotting against me together." "Forged?" I sneered, pulling Lingxi's final note from my chest. "Zhao Chenyan, this is Lingxi's dying words, written with her life, revealing your secret of altering the imperial will. The empress did not die in childbirth. She was murdered by you for discovering your forgery. You replaced her with an impostor and silenced all palace maids and physicians. You thought your crimes were hidden, but you never expected Lingxi to leave this evidence in a dry well." I stepped toward him. "Zhao Chenyan, ask yourself, how did Lingxi treat you? How did I treat you? Lingxi loved you for 10 years, bore your child, managed the harem faithfully, never complaining once. I fought on the battlefield for you, risked my life countless times to build your empire, never harboring the slightest ill will. Yet you, driven by suspicion, planned to eliminate me. Driven by fear of exposure, you murdered your wife and unborn child, throwing Lingxi's body into a dry well to rot. Zhao Chenyan, are you worthy of being emperor? Of being a husband? Of being a father?" My voice echoed through the hall, every word dripping with blood and rage. Zhao Chenyan stumbled back against the dragon throne, cornered. He stared at me, his eyes filled with madness and hatred, screaming, "She brought this on herself. She betrayed me. She never loved me. She only cared about you, Shen Hanchuang. She even had another man. Such a woman deserved to die." I froze, then burst out laughing at the absurdity of his words. "What are you saying? Lingxi betrayed you? She had another man? Are you insane, Zhao Chenyan?" "I am not insane." His eyes blazed as he pointed at me. "She wrote you letters, telling you to find Oreo. That must be the name of her lover. Before she died, she called out Oreo. She never loved me. I killed her and that bastard child because she deserved it." At his words, I could not hold back my laughter, tears streaming down my face. "Oreo? Zhao Chenyan, you want to know who Oreo is? I'll tell you now. Oreo is not a person's name. It's just a type of cookie, a secret signal only Lingxi and I shared." I stared at his stunned face, continuing. "A year ago when I left for war, Lingxi and I made a pact. If either of us was harmed, we would say Oreo to warn the other of danger, to trust no one. When she wrote you to find Oreo, she was begging me not to return, to flee your wrath. When she called out Oreo as she died, she was telling me she was murdered, warning me not to trust you. That monster in human skin. All the betrayal you imagined was nothing but your own paranoia. The lover you suspected was just a cookie." I stared at him, contempt in my eyes. I've always heard emperors are heartless and suspicious. Today, I see it is true. Zhao Chenyan, you have lost. You lost not just your empire, but the hearts of those who loved you, 10 years of devotion, everything you destroyed with your own hands. No, impossible. Zhao Chenyan whispered, collapsing onto the dragon throne, his gaze vacant. "Oreo is a cookie, just a cookie. Lingxi never betrayed me." He finally realized he had killed the woman who loved him for 10 years, who gambled everything for him, and their unborn child. His suspicion and lust for power had destroyed the most precious thing in his life. He stared at Lingxi's note, the forged will, the contempt of all officials, the hatred in my eyes. He suddenly let out a wild, bitter laugh. Ha ha ha! I was wrong. I was wrong. Lingxi, I'm sorry. Laughing maniacally, he drew his sword from his waist and drove it into his chest. Blood splattered across the dragon throne, staining the golden silk crimson. Zhao Chenyan fell back against the throne, his gaze toward the window, whispering, Lingxi, I'm sorry. An emperor, reduced to a tragic end, a laughingstock of the world. With Zhao Chenyan dead, chaos erupted in the court. Grand Tutor Gu and the ministers discussed matters and crowned the ninth prince, Zhao Chenyu, as the new emperor. Upon ascending, the new emperor's first decree was to posthumously honor Lingxi as the pure empress, burying her with full imperial rights in the mausoleum. He also cleared the names of the silenced maids and physicians. Grateful for my role in quelling the rebellion and restoring order, he offered me the title of Princess Protector of the Nation, high rank, 10,000 taels of gold, and 1,000 acres of fertile land. I shook my head, refusing all rewards. I had stormed the palace not for glory or wealth, but to avenge Lingxi. Now that justice was served, my purpose was fulfilled. Military power and wealth meant nothing to me. I asked for nothing but Lingxi's ashes. The new emperor stared at me for a long moment before sighing. Granted. I handed over my tiger seal and general's official seal, turning to walk out of the court. I retrieved Lingxi's body from the cold palace, then went to the mausoleum to reclaim her face. I knew Lingxi would not want any part of her left in this place. I cremated her body and placed her ashes in an exquisite brocade box. I returned to Duke Wuding's residence, kneeling before my parents and bowing 3 times. They knew of Lingxi and my grief, and did not stop me, only tearing up and telling me to take care of myself. I mounted my horse, carrying Lingxi's ashes, and rode to the edge of Sorrow Cliff on the outskirts of the capital. This was the first place Lingxi and I saw when we traveled through time. Back then, we were helpless strangers, supporting each other in this unfamiliar world, beginning our 10-year journey here. Standing at the cliff's edge, the wind was strong, lifting my hair and scattering Lingxi's ashes from the brocade box like white flutters into the distance. I held the box, sitting at the cliff. Lingxi, look. The empire has a new ruler. I avenged you, destroyed Zhao Chenyan's reign, made him pay with his life. But Lingxi, this ancient world is no fun without you. There's no milk tea, no hot pot, no dramas we loved, no Oreos we ate together. The people here are cruel, the emperor heartless. Everything sickens me. We promised to return to the modern world together. You stayed for love, so I stayed for you. But you left me first. I set down the box, tucked the purple wooden hairpin into my hair, and whispered, Lingxi, I'm coming for you. With that, I jumped off the edge of Sorrow Cliff. Beneath the cliff lay an endless abyss shrouded in mist. I heard only the wind, and a familiar voice. Mumu. From that day on, there was no longer a protector general Shen Hanshuang or a pure empress Gu Lingxi in this world. When I opened my eyes again, white ceilings, white walls, the faint smell of disinfectant in the air. A hospital? I moved my fingers. A nurse adjusting an IV drip turned to me. You're awake? You've been in a coma for 3 days. I parted my lips, my voice hoarse and rough. Where am I? City First Hospital. The nurse came over to check my blood pressure. You fell down the stairs and hit your head. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Oh, your friend visited every day. She was just here a moment ago. Friend? My heart skipped a beat. What friend? A girl around your age, wearing a ponytail. I threw off the blanket, about to get out of bed. The nurse jumped. Wait, you're still on an IV drip. I grabbed her sleeve. What's her name? The girl. What's her name? Startled, the nurse stammered. I don't know. She didn't say. Barefoot, I ran toward the door. People bustled through the hallway. I rushed to the elevator. When it didn't move, I sprinted into the stairwell. Eyebrows, nose, lips, all identical. Reaching the lobby, a figure walked toward me in the sunlight. Ponytail, white t-shirt, carrying a plastic bag with 2 cups of milk tea. Sunlight gilded her face. She saw me and smiled, walking over. Here's your favorite taro milk tea, less sugar, no ice, but you can't drink cold right now, so. I threw my arms around her, tears stinging my eyes. Lingxi, she struggled free, flicking my forehead gently. Silly? This is the modern world. My name's Lu Yao now. I stared at her, lost for words. She slung an arm around my shoulders, leading me outside. Thminla, let's get you discharged. We'll have hot pot tonight. Then binge that drama. I saved 10 episodes just for you. I followed her, warm sunlight wrapping around me. At the door, I suddenly stopped. Lu Yao. I looked at her softly. Did it hurt? She froze for a second. Then she smiled. Yeah, but if you buy me Oreos, I'll feel better. I nodded fiercely. I'll buy you 10,000 of them. Don't go back on your word. Wonder if we can finish 10,000 Oreos in one lifetime. We held hands, walking into the sunlight together.